And we are live. You already know who it is. My name is Mike Kyle, aka the Fantasy Vulture. I have over a decade worth of fantasy football experience, and I've continuously competed for fantasy championships over the course of the past 6 seasons. Let's make it 7 in 2020. But enough of me. I'm here for you. On today's episode of the FB Show, we are going to continue our Week 3 game recaps, breaking down every single Week 3 matchup, all through the lens of fantasy football. Up next, Green Bay Packers versus the New Orleans Saints. So if you are excited for this game recap, be sure to hit that like button down below like an open receiver downfield. Also smash that subscribe button like a power running back up the middle so you never miss a video from me. Last but not least, you can follow me on all social media platforms at FFVulture. There we go. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, mainly Twitter. Like, that's just my favorite social media platform. It's been that for over a decade now at this point. I love interacting. I love being able to answer start-sit questions, waiver wire pickups, trade offers, anything like that in just a matter of seconds. I've also been getting a ton of DMs over there as well. I love the conversation. But let's talk about the Green Bay Packers versus the New Orleans Saints, a game that was an electric performance from both sides on Sunday night. I honestly wasn't even going to record this video tonight. I was going to save it for tomorrow. But I got a trade that I want to talk about, and I was getting real antsy not talking about it. But let's just dive right in. The Packers defeated the Saints in New Orleans by a final score of 37-30. It was, in fact, a high-scoring affair. The Packers improved to 3-0 on the season, while the Saints dropped to 1-2. Aaron Rodgers balled out yet again. He had 21 completions on 32 pass attempts, also had 283 passing yards, and 3 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers is back. Aaron Jones also had another fine game himself, 16 carries for 69 yards, #nice, and a touchdown. Allen Lazard, the breakout, is here. 6 receptions, 8 targets, 146 yards, and a score. And Robert Tonyan, tight end for this Packers team, also emerged for the second straight week. He hauled in all 5 of his targets for 50 yards and a touchdown. Friendly reminder, Davante Adams did not play due to a hamstring injury. On the other side, with the Saints, there was a lot of questions about whether or not Drew Brees still had it. He looked all right this game. He looked a lot better than he did in the first 2 weeks. Brees, 29 of 36 for 288 yards and 3 touchdowns. But the story of this game, Alvin Kamara is an absolute fantasy superstar through the first 3 weeks. Only 6 carries, 58 yards, but it's not about that. It's about what he did in the receiving game. He hauled in 13 of 14 targets for 139 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kamara finished with 38.2 fantasy points in half-point scoring formats. And last but not least, Emmanuel Sanders finally came through if you held on to him and started him this week. 4 receptions, 5 targets for 56 yards and a touchdown. Also important to note that tight end Jared Cook left the game in the third quarter with a groin injury. So, like normal, let's just talk about it, right? There is a lot to discuss for this game. I want to start off with the Packers. Aaron Rodgers is officially on fire. He's back. He's playing. I feel like Rodgers is really just playing with a moxie that he hasn't had over the course of the past, 2.5 years or so. But he's here. He's on fire. Let's see here. I want to go through the numbers real quick for him. So 31 fantasy points in week 1, followed by 19 in week 2, which fine. That's not awful by any means. And then follows that up with another 3 touchdown performance in week 3 versus New Orleans and comes away with 25. So far this year, Aaron Rodgers has thrown. Let's see. Let's do some math here. So Rodgers through 3 games has 9 touchdowns, and that is vintage Aaron Rodgers. That makes me super happy. He was a guy that if you wanted to gamble on him late, after a lot of people, probably including myself, admittedly, we were all ruling him out. So if you took the gamble on Rodgers that late in your draft, he was going behind Cam Newton. He was going behind Tom Brady. He was really just sliding. I think he was primarily a. I want to say he was being drafted as QB 14. I had him ranked as QB 12 or QB 13 going into the season, and he is absolutely smashing that. He's currently the QB 5 overall. Before we get into Aaron Jones, because that is who I want to really talk about in this game, I do want to bring up Allen Lazard. We were waiting to see if the number 2 option for Green Bay would ever emerge like it once did, and it does look like Lazard is that guy. The breakout is here. He is now currently, it's so funny, after this game, he's now the wide receiver 6. But he has played well through the first 3 weeks of the season, right? In week 1, he had the 16-point game against Minnesota, where he had 63 yards and a touchdown. A little bit of a down game in week 2, only finishing with 6 fantasy points. But then in week 3, without Davante Adams here against the Saints, he absolutely balled out. And the Saints' defense is suddenly becoming very problematic, right? This team, the way that this team is really designed for New Orleans specifically is that with an aging Drew Brees, you need to have a solid defense, and if you don't, it could be very problematic for your team. And this defense is one that's been very highly touted over the course of the past 2 years, and it looks like that the decline is quickly coming for them. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, MVS, busted for you, which is really unfortunate because he was one of those guys where if you had Davante Adams, you might have picked up MVS and you played him instead, just because of the fact that this was the late game on Sunday night. You needed to have a pivot if Adams was unable to go, and Valdez-Scantling absolutely killed you. Only 4 targets, holding 1 catch for 5 yards. That has bust written all over it. I do want to spend a moment to talk about Robert Tonyan. This is now back-to-back games where he scored a touchdown, back-to-back games where he's had above 25 receiving yards. And just a name to keep an eye on, the tight end landscape started off looking so great, and then we lost Blake Jarwin. Chris Herndon is in bust mode right now. Hayden Hurst hasn't come through in ways that people have wanted him to. So this tight end position is slowly crumbling after we all thought it would be so good. And Robert Tonyan might be a guy where if you want to be real sneaky, he's just a name to pay attention to going forward the rest of the season, especially with bye weeks approaching in the coming weeks. So let's talk about Aaron Jones. This is where, I got thoughts here. So Aaron Jones, right, 16 carries, 69 yards, 1 touchdown, only had 4 targets for 17 yards in a game where Davante Adams did not play. I don't have an issue with Aaron Jones. In fact, I love Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is one of my favorite football players in the NFL right now. My issue is that I fucking hate Matt LaFleur. And the reason why I hate Matt LaFleur is because, and this happened with Mike McCarthy too, admittedly, but Matt LaFleur was supposed to come in and fix this, right? The fact that Aaron Jones comes off the field for not just plays, but for literal drives in favor of Jamal Williams is inexcusable. In the 4th quarter when this game was tied, you are on the road in New Orleans, and you are looking to move the ball downfield, and who do you have in the backfield? Jamal Williams over Aaron fucking Jones. Are you serious? And it's not just this game. It's happened in games before. It happened last year. And it's happened the year before that as well. I don't fucking get it. Aaron Jones is one of the most efficient running backs in the NFL. It's also why he's great for fantasy. But the fact that he's coming off for plays at a time, drives at a time. There was multiple fucking times in that game yesterday where the Packers had the ball inside of the 5 and Aaron Jones was not on the field. What are we doing? Please, someone explain this to me. The way that I texted this to a friend was that I have a toxic relationship with Matt LaFleur. The sex is great, but we fight too much. And this is why I traded Aaron Jones away in Dynasty today. And that brings me to the main point of why I wanted to make this video, because I wanted to go over this trade. So let's break it down. That's the wrong screen. That's also the wrong screen. There we go. So this is the trade. The trade that I made today, I traded away Aaron Jones. I traded away Leonard Fournette, Traquan Smith, and Benny Snell in order to acquire Kenyon Drake, Joe Mixon, and Mecole Hardman. So I want to break this down just a little bit. I moved on from Aaron Jones simply because of the fact that I don't want to deal with the headaches. The headaches are too frustrating. The other reason why I wanted to make this move is because if you look at my team right here, I have Aaron Jones and Chris Carson as my main 2 running backs. I also have Myles Gaskin. Scroll down just a little bit further. I had Leonard Fournette. We're just going to kind of focus on, even if it says off roster, we'll talk about them as well. Fournette. And then I had, let's scroll down. I had Benny Snell, Zach Moss, Van Jefferson, Keyshawn Vaughn, Antonio Gibson. Can I scroll this down? There we go. All right, so these were my running backs. If the one thing that I felt really uncomfortable with, given the state of my running backs, was the drop off between. Wait, I want to slide this up one more time. There we go. The drop-off between my number 2 and my number 3 running backs just felt too massive, especially with Chris Carson going out yesterday just due to that knee sprain. So, for example, right, and especially with bye weeks coming up too, let's say Chris Carson misses this next game versus Miami, which is a great matchup for him. I'm now playing Leonard Fournette, and I don't feel comfortable with Leonard Fournette as my number 2 running back at that point, right? I'm literally, if I don't have another running back, I'm dead in the water because the drop-off in talent and the drop-off in production is so massive. Now, that's not saying that Fournette that's not saying that Fournette can't have a good game. It's that when you go through his numbers, I'll pull these up right now. Like, just look at the snap percentage. 14, 43, 36. The opportunity is not even there. 12 carries for 103 yards. He had that 46-yard touchdown, so that's going to help. Obviously, he also scored a touchdown at the 1. But 5 carries, 7 carries. Some work in the receiving game, but not enough to really matter. Also, the fact that Bruce Arians has no idea what he wants to do at the running back position. He just keeps rotating between Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, and that was another ride that I wanted to get off of. Remember, I traded for Leonard Fournette once he was cut by the Jags. I traded away Kerryon Johnson, and then once he signs with the Bucs, you think it could be really nice, but now as this backfield is slowly shaken out over the course of the first 3 weeks, it's an absolute disaster. So I don't even know what the true value of Leonard Fournette is right now, so I was willing to cut bait with him. And then Benny Snell is only valuable when James Conner is out, or when James Conner is not on the field, rather. And there is some talk that Benny Snell could be the Pittsburgh Steelers running back moving forward, but honestly, that's not something that I really want to wait and see. And if Benny Snell is just kind of sitting on my bench because we never know what Conner is going to do, being up or down, just leaving the game randomly. Like, when are you ever going to feel confident starting Benny Snell? And I honestly just picked up Traquan Smith last week once Michael Thomas went out, so I had no problem dealing him, especially if I was getting Mecole Hardman later on. But I want to talk about why I added Kenyon Drake and Joe Mixon. And it's very, very funny because I made this deal before... I proposed this deal last night, almost immediately after the Sunday night game. I was just like, I'm done. I want to get off the Aaron Jones ride. I don't want to do this anymore. And I've been trying to get Kenyon Drake from the former Kenyon Drake owner all offseason long, and I suddenly, just for whatever reason, I made the play to also try and get Mixon as well because of how Mixon has been struggling throughout the course of the season too. But what's funny is that I actually heard on a podcast from the footballers, Jason Moore, was saying that if you own Kenyon Drake or Joe Mixon, don't panic because better days are coming, and that is literally why I traded for those two guys, like a few hours beforehand. So the reason why I love Kenyon Drake is even though the production hasn't necessarily been there, still double-digit games in 2 out of 3. But when you look at the snap percentage, 70, 64, 68, he is the guy in Arizona right now. You look at the attempts, 16, 20, 18. Just for comparison, let's go over Aaron Jones real quick. When you look at him, 54, 47, and then the Sunday night game hasn't been added, but I'm sure it's probably around the same thing as well. And you look at the attempts, around the same number of attempts as well. And then when you go over to Joe Mixon, as I talked about in my Bengals recap, had all the rushing attempts for the Bengals and in their game versus the Eagles. And you look at his snap percentage, it's not great. It's kind of similar to Aaron Jones, admittedly, but you still look at the opportunities and the volume. So it's 19, 16, 17. Some work in the receiving game as well. And obviously that snap percentage went up by 20% in a game versus the Eagles. And you go just going over through the rest of their schedule, right? Jacksonville, that's a winnable game. Baltimore, probably Mixon could get game scripted out. Indy's a toss-up. Cleveland's a toss-up. Tennessee's a toss-up. And then just going down just a little bit further, Washington's a great matchup. The Giants are a great matchup. The Dolphins are a great matchup. And so there is just stretches where Joe Mixon's going to be extremely valuable. And I've talked about it before in the sense of I know the Joe Mixon experience. I had it last year. Joe Mixon struggled really early on, and if you stuck to the course and you stayed true to him, he came through and he won you championships. So I'm really excited about these two guys going forward, and especially in Dynasty. One reason why I really wanted to go after Joe Mixon is because, one, I thought I could get him. Also, number two, he's locked into that contract. He just signed a 4-year extension this offseason, so I know he's going to be tied to the Bengals for the long term. And also, I believe in the Bengals offense moving forward. I know this offensive line is a problem, but just the pieces that they have, I've raved about the Bengals all offseason long. And to get Joe Mixon in a deal like this, I felt like it was the right move. So, again, this deal was primarily made not because of the fact that I was out on Aaron Jones. It's my toxic relationship with Matt LaFleur, but also then the uncomfortable, but then also the what's the right word? But then also the eeriness that I felt with my running backs. I have a lot of them, and, I think I have a lot of potential with Zach Moss. We'll see what Keyshawn Vaughn turns into, and I love Antonio Gibson. But when you were looking at my running back in terms of tiers, I had my top two, major gap, Leonard Fournette, and then another gap, and then it was Moss, Vaughn, and Gibson. Whereas now, if you look at my team, I really feel like that it's Carson, Mixon, Drake, all in the same tier, all top 10, all top 15, top 12 guys. And then we have that break. And just adding that extra piece, I felt would be really valuable for my team moving forward in the long run. But we still have a whole nother game, or a whole nother team to talk about, don't we? Can I pull this back up? All right, let's, wrong screen. There we go. We still have to talk about the Saints. I know I just spent a ton of, I didn't even talk about Mecole Hardman. I'm all over the place right now. All right, so the reason why I added Mecole Hardman in this deal, initially, Mecole Hardman was not part of this deal when I sent it on Sunday night. What ended up happening was, as I was sitting there, I sent the offer, and then something in me told me to retract it, so I did. And then I just texted. I texted the owner I was in contact with, and I was like, I want to pull the offer now. Like, this is what I'm going to offer you, but I want to withdraw it from Sleeper so that we can discuss it just a bit more. And as I was, as the few hours progressed, especially going into Monday afternoon, I was just like, I feel like I need to get more here. So, like, what can I get? I was looking at his team. He has a lot of great wide receivers. He has Mike Evans. He has Devontae Parker. He has John Brown. He has CeeDee Lamb. He has Mecole Hardman. He has Demarcus Robinson. And I was just trying to think, like, I'm giving up the number 2 running back right now. I'm giving up a potential top 24 guy in Fournette, Benny Snell. We'll see what he turns into, and Traquan Smith. I need to get one more piece back in return. And as I'm scrolling through his team, I'm like, I bet you I can get Hardman. I love the potential of Mecole Hardman. I think knowing when to start him is always going to be the challenge. Like, for example, how many people started Mecole Hardman tonight against the Ravens, where he scored, I think it was 19 fantasy points in half-point formats. While I don't know how viable Mecole Hardman is going to be on a week-to-week basis, the reason why I love him is the fact, number one, he is tied into this Kansas City offense, and that's always a good thing if you just need a spot start and if you need a spot start in place of bye weeks, right? But then number two, Mecole Hardman is the definition of a swing for the fences play. If you are going up against a league juggernaut, which, trust me, there are 2 of them in my league, and I need a play where I feel like my back is against the wall and we need to hit a home run, you throw Mecole Hardman into your flex and you let it ride, right? So that was why I wanted to add one more piece to the trade, and Mecole Hardman I felt like was the perfect fit for it. All right, let's go back now. We're going to talk about the Saints here. I know that was a bit long-winded, but I do like the point of this channel and the brand is obviously to give you guys the content and the breakdowns of what's happening in every single game, but I also like talking about my team so that you guys can get a better understanding of what I'm looking to do as a manager, just roster moves that I think I could make to improve my team, and just kind of inspire you guys to think something along the same lines as well. Like, that's the thing. I know that Drake, I totally understand that Drake and Mixon are struggling right now, and I understand Aaron Jones just had a 40-point game 2 weeks ago. So on the surface, that deal doesn't look great, but when you consider the fact that, one, we play 2 flexes in this league, so it gives me the opportunity to start all 3 at the same time. It also adds to my running back depth. I felt like that drop-off, and then obviously getting Hardman in the deal made a lot of sense to me as well. But going over to the Saints now. Drew Brees, again, looked better than I thought during the first, compared to the first 2 weeks. So Brees had a really nice rebound game, I thought. The only thing that I really want to talk about right now is Alvin Kamara. I'm going to be honest with you guys. With Kamara, this is otherworldly. We knew that Kamara is super talented. I've talked about this before. He's my favorite running back in the NFL. But the thing that was always holding him back was the opportunity, I felt like, because he was splitting carries with Mark Ingram, because he is splitting carries with Latavius Murray, right? But in games like this, and even still, Latavius Murray had 12 carries, right? He had more carries than Kamara, for, I think, for the second straight week. But just it feels like Kamara never comes off the field because of the fact that he's always utilized in both the ground game and the receiving game. And I think that's the difference, right? Because you look at this, 12 carries, 13 carries, 6 carries, and while it's not great by any means, he also has 3 rushing touchdowns. But in half-point formats, he's an absolute cheat code, very similar to Christian McCaffrey because of the volume he gets in there as well, especially without Michael Thomas now for the next who knows how long, right? So just to go through, 8 targets, 9 targets, 14, 5 receptions, 9 receptions, 13 receptions, 51, 95, 139, 1 touchdown, 2 touchdown. Like, he is just an absolute monster on both sides of the offense, right? On the ground and through the air. That long touchdown that he had was unbelievable. The balance that he displayed, his ability to just weave and bob through defenders. I love Kamara, but this start is utterly absurd, right? We've talked about let Russ cook and the great start that Russell Wilson's on right now. Yo, what Kamara is doing for fantasy it's unbelievable. And like I think it's even crazier because Kamara was traded in my dynasty league this offseason, and looking at what he's doing now, I don't know what the fuck you trade him for, but I know that whoever's traded Kamara in my dynasty league sold him way too low because this is monstrous. Again, 21.1, 33.9, and then 38.2 in back-to-back-to-back weeks. Alvin Kamara is a goddamn superstar. And it's truly unbelievable. He's so fucking talented. That's that's not new for me to say. That's not new for anybody to say. But just seeing what he's doing in the absence of Michael Thomas is so fucking impressive. And I want to see him keep it up. I really, really do. Anything else to know here? The only thing I want to make note of here is Jared Cook. It really was just one bad game, but even just looking at it, like, the first 2 games weren't great. I'm slowly starting to sound the alarm on Jared Cook. I'm not entirely sure what to do with him. Like, 7 targets, 5 targets, 3 targets, left that game Sunday night with a groin injury, 5 receptions, 2 receptions, 80 yards, 13 yards, and a touchdown, 21 yards. I think you hang tight. I do. I think you hang tight just because better days are ahead for Jared Cook. But if you have to drop him, and let's say you want to go out and get a Dalton Schultz, or you want to get a Jonnu Smith who just for whatever reason happens to be on your waiver wire still, or you feel like that there are better options, I understand why. I'll say that. I understand why. Other than that, that's going to do it for my Packers and Saints game recap. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. I know this was in fact a long one. This is approaching 24 minutes, and these usually are anywhere between 12 and 15. My bad, but like I said, I wanted to talk about that trade that I made earlier today involving Aaron Jones. So thank you guys so much for watching. Again, you guys can follow me on all social media platforms at FFVulture. Remember, people come and go, but fantasy championships are forever, and I will see you in the next video.